Hello, my name is Jo, and this is the booktube newbie tag. I will include the link that I got these questions from below. I did want to wait until I already had a couple videos out to do this, just so that if you're new here, you can check out some more videos before deciding if you do want to subscribe, but I would love to have you, so let's get into the questions. The first question is, why did you start this channel? Other than like narcissism, I don't really have an answer. I'm just kidding. I've actually always loved YouTube. I love watching YouTube. I had a booktube channel briefly about 10 years ago. I actually got to like 100 subscribers. I'd been doing it for a couple months, and then my sister found the channel because she was snooping on my laptop, and I got like embarrassed and overwhelmed and either deleted or privated all of the videos and stopped doing it, which was dumb. I should have just kept doing it. I'm glad to be back, and I'm sure I have much more worthwhile things to contribute now anyway, so maybe it all worked out. Second question is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to booktube? So this is probably the time to address that I'm not exclusively booktube. If you look at my videos that are already out, I do talk about more than just books. I talk about language learning, sustainability, just other topics. Have a bit of a rebellious streak, being like forced to only make videos about books just doesn't sit right with me. I actually watched a video earlier today by Brody, hopefully I said that right, that really like perfectly covered why I didn't want to do an exclusively booktube channel, so I will link that in the description and probably in the cards also. To me, having a niche just sounds like, here's a thing you like, ruin it for yourself. I don't think that there's any way that I could make videos about only one topic and not end up getting sick of it just because of the way that I am as a person. So this will not be an exclusively bookish channel, but I do really love to read, and I read quite a lot. So books will always be interspersed through all of the content that I do. I do have an exclusively book related Instagram, so if you're interested in following that, that one is just books. What are you most excited for about this channel? I think finding like-minded people, discussing things with people, really look forward to that. I find the whole process of making videos and getting the ideas for videos a really nice creative effort, and I hope this will lead into more creativity on my part. I used to spend pretty much all of my free time either reading or doing like creative things like art, collage. That was my thing, and then I went to school for a STEM subject, and honestly it just like leached that right out of me. I feel like my creative self is just a husk of its former self, so I'm hoping that this will help open the gates to my creativity again. The fourth question is, why do you love reading? I honestly would not be anything like the person that I am today without reading. The amount of different perspectives that I've been exposed to through reading, the amount of experiences that I feel like I've witnessed that I would have had no way of knowing about is just incredible. I think that reading gives you so much empathy, it gives you so much more diversity of experience. When I was younger, reading was a huge escape for me. I don't think that currently it's that much of an escape, because it's normally like trying to fit reading in around sustaining daily life, so it's not like on your average day I can just get lost in a book for hours and hours and hours, unfortunately, although I am trying to increase the amount of time that I can do that. But I still think that reading is so important to me as a person, and is still something that I get so much enjoyment out of. The next question, I'm kind of combining two questions. What book or series got you into reading, and when did you start reading? I have always been into reading. Since even before I could read, I would take my sister's books and pretend to be reading them. I wanted to be able to read like chapter books. Of course I loved picture books and stuff, but I always wanted to be able to read paper books with tons of words on the page. So I have always been into reading. The series that probably had the biggest impact on my childhood was The Chronicles of Narnia. I have read that series many times. Second most would probably be Anne of Green Gables, specifically the later books. I loved the later books even more than the first book, but that one was kind of later in life. I think Chronicles of Narnia was probably the biggest impact on my childhood. What questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? I should have thought about this beforehand. So some of my favorite booktubers, I really enjoy Drinking by My Shelf. I would probably ask her how she got to be so funny so that I could learn. I watch booktube like all the time, and the second that someone asks me, it's like when someone asks you your favorite movie and you're like, I've never seen a movie before because I can't remember a single one. I feel like if I asked any of these people these questions, I would like feel guilty because they probably have answered these questions somewhere else. Onyx Pages is another favorite. I could ask them what their favorite graphic novel is. I feel like they're always reading great looking graphic novels, which I would like to get more into. Uncarly is one that I just started watching recently, and she is hilarious. She makes me laugh so much, so she's another one that I would ask about humor, but I would ask Uncarly, what is the worst book that you've ever read? Because I feel like she would probably have a really funny rant about that. Alright, I think I'm gonna stick with those three because I have no memory. The 7th question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? This one is definitely time. I do have a full-time job, and I'm also taking a class or two off and on, so this summer I will have 2 classes and a full-time job and, you know, trying to have a life and doing YouTube. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty generic, but that's the biggest one, is making time to actually do it. Not to mention making time to actually read, to have something to talk about in the book videos. So the next question is, where do you read? So I'm just going to take that as my favorite place to read because I read wherever, but my favorite place to read would be outside. There's a park down the road from me that I really enjoy walking to and reading there. I really like reading, like if I'm at a park or a campsite or anything. Additionally, I read in bed a lot. I'm not sure, you know, if you're really supposed to do that, but I do. The next question is, what kind of books do you like to read? And I really am not that particular about kind of books. I would say I'm a little bit picky about books, but it's not really based on like genre or anything. The only genres that I really don't enjoy are romance. Makes me very uncomfortable to read. I would say some of my favorites are sci-fi and fantasy, memoirs. I do really like nonfiction, literary fiction, whatever that means. I do enjoy a good mystery thriller. It's been a minute since I read one, so I should do that soon. The last question on this list is, what does your book collection look like? I'm not going to show all my shelves because they are kind of interspersed in my apartment and they're also not clean. But last year I tried to read all of my unread books, which I had about 100, and I got it down to like 12 at like the lowest point, and that included decluttering and DNFing. It's back up to probably about 20 now, but I do try to keep it small enough to be on that shelf. As far as kind of buying habits or whatever, because I don't really consider myself to have a book collection, I am actually considering doing a deep declutter of my books soon. I just like to have books that really inspire me, books that I might want to reread or lend to someone. I don't keep every book that I read, and I'm really trying to work on getting books from the library first, and then if I love them, buying them instead of buying a book to see if I like it. In, you know, certain circumstances, that's fine. I have a lot of great used bookstores around me, and my library also has great used book sales when it's not a panorama. So I'm fine with buying a used book, but I'm trying to do that less because it's not necessary. That was kind of the biggest lesson from my unread books challenge, was I didn't need to buy most of those books because I did not keep most of them. That is something that I'm working on in regard to my book collection right now. So that was everything for this tag. I hope that you know, you got some kind of introduction to me and my channel. Check out my other videos if you're interested. I do have a playlist for my book videos that I'll put on the end screen. Leave a comment if you'd like to start a discussion about any of the things that I talked about here, or if you'd just like to introduce yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks!